good evening, or it's 12:30, and I decided to get on and just talk a lot of stuff going on. So there it is. So again, live from Beast and Mellows in Keller, Texas, where I live at. I've changed my Facebook page as well as no, really that's it. So I hope everybody had a great day. Today was eventful, rough day at work, so to speak. I mean, it's all relative, right? And of course, finished a assignment. So the assignment was about a Supreme Court justice, his or her life experiences, the nomination or confirming hearings, anything interesting about them. So I chose Clarence Thomas, who is a United States Supreme Court Associate Justice, and he is an originalist, which means he believes in the original intent of the Constitution and most of his rulings. I would say all of his rulings, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to say most of it. Um, so that was that. But a lot going on. We are still awaiting some decisions out in Nevada and Arizona. And then something happened that was interesting to some. I don't really see much of it. But after the election now, there appears to be a concerted effort to assign some blame, or if not all the blame, to 45, President Trump. However, in my opinion, and it is my opinion, that he did not run for office. I believe that all of the candidates that he supported, or what's the word that they always use? Not support. Sometimes your brain goes a little crazy. Anyway, or nominated, or whatever the case would be. His what record was 179.9. And again, I say that because you can't be 100%. And I always find that interesting that they'll talk about one person's record, but then let's say they'll talk about the candidates that Senator McConnell supported, or the candidates that Minority House Speaker McCarthy supported, or the candidates that ex or Vice President Pence supported, or President Biden, or Vice President Kamala Harris. But singularly, the focus has been on President Trump since 2016 till now. It gets a little tiring from the perspective of many people. It's like overkill. Like, in some aspects, you can see that they have turned him into a little bit of a martyr. Anyway, so the quote unquote establishment, in the words of many on Twitter and in the news media and social media, seem to be circling the wagons against President Trump. And he released a statement in which he spoke about now Governor-elect DeSantis. Obviously, there has always been a turbulent relationship with the GOP and President Trump. During his 4 years, there's a side of the equation that says that he could not accomplish things that he would have liked to have accomplished because of the infighting and the egotistical ways, as well as the power struggle and structure within the party, as well as the opposite party being the Democratic Party. And then there is the media, which we know he considers to be fake news, and he has stated that. And there's some legitimacy to that. We have to acknowledge that there have been, just recently in the last couple of years, there have been some news articles that they have had to, well, the news, I can't say doesn't like to recant or didn't recant, but there have definitely been some stories that have been printed that have been found to be completely false. So we have to acknowledge. I mean, the truth is the truth all day and all night, whether we like it or not. And I think that the honest people out there will acknowledge that the truth is the truth. And then if you don't acknowledge the truth is truth, that's all right. That's your life as well. You're entitled to that. So look. my Twitter is actually up. And let's see if I can juxtapose real quick here. And bang, look at that. I was able to do it. So that's me in the right hand little corner. I'm surprised that I was able to do it smoothly today. And sometimes it's hard to do everything as well as keep your concentration. So it says Alec Bruce with the knives out for Trump. The establishment is trying to crown Governor-elect DeSantis. Trump recognizes this and welcomes the fight. The primary will be interesting. My reply to that was, I don't think it will be much of a primary. In all honesty, trying to turn public perception against 45 won't work. We've been living in that theater or arena for quite some time now. Most recently, before the election, we know about the DOJ, FBI. Some people will say search, some people will say raid, some people say political theater, searching the ex-president or President Trump's home in search of, at first it was nuclear documents, then it was trade secrets or secrets, and then it was, he's committing treason and espionage, and it really was just a simple, narrow dispute, in my humble opinion. I actually wrote an opinion about that, where NARA is bound by certain laws. It's pretty clear, in my opinion, that I wrote, that NARA cannot escalate things to a criminal proceeding, which is why, if you read Judge Cannon's opinion and her decision to allow a special reviewer to review the documents, that she stated the reason why they were even at that stage, as well as how the events transpired to lead to that stage, which was interesting because it go back to revoking executive privilege and then getting the DOJ to escalate a quote-unquote criminal proceeding. However, once you read the Presidential Records Act, you realize that it can't be. So anyway, that's up for discussion. I'm pretty sure we could have that debate at some point. But getting back to the whole primary thing, if there was a primary, it really wouldn't be, in my opinion, a primary for the ages, simply because Governor DeSantis, as well as many other political leaders, especially those that have actually won their election and are in office, even Mitch McConnell and his re-election, it was President Trump that was stumping for him on the campaign trail. A lot of them I can't say let's not use that word, but he was clearly instrumental in them getting reelected, and his base is solid. As you know, it's solid. it's very, his base is solid. So, and even Governor-elect DeSantis, if he's being honest, and I believe that he would be honest, would say that, people are grateful for the strides and the work as far as the Make America Great movement, or the conservative movement, or the We the People movement, or simply getting back to true representation on the federal level, whereby the people are actually involved in the governing of the government, because the people are involved in the governing of themselves. If we take the Constitution in its literal form when it was brought forth out of the Constitution Convention. So I think that DeSantis would need Trump's base to vote for him. And if you're going to drive a wedge between them, considering there are some feelings of trepidation when it comes to some members of the Republican Party, whether it be Mitch McConnell or a minority speaker McCarthy, or Senator Graham, or a couple of others, Senator Murkowski, who actually voted to impeach President Trump. Was it impeached or was on the January 6th? Or we know about Liz Cheney. So there are people that perceive some of the Republican Party as quote unquote those who work against the gains that the party could do conjuntos, or together. I'm being very nice right now. I'm being very nice. But obviously there's opinion, and they call them RINO, which means Republican in name only. So if the party were to attempt to create a martyr out of President Trump, you alienate all of the 74 million people that voted for him. And then there are people that say that it's quite more. That there were definitely some issues as far as the popular vote, and state votes and things that transpired during the 2020 election. A lot of those things are still relevant. A lot of those things are still extant or living right now, and we're still working our way through them as a country. And that has definitely created some partisanship, which was existent before the 2020 election. But considering that and considering the things that are happening right now in Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and now we have the runoff between candidate Senate-elect, possibly Herschel Walker, and now current Senator Warnock. So these are real. This is real stuff. So I just basically stated right there that, for months and years now, the opposite party, the Democratic Party, has been trying to slander and taken this approach of aggression where they're constantly bombarding the ex-president in the news. I think that Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, embodies the term, the smear campaign, very well. You say something and you wrap them up, and it doesn't necessarily have to be true, but if you have the media backing you and you have social media, and some people believe that if you say something enough that people will start believing it's true, or you muddy the waters long enough, which is what smears do. They don't necessarily have to be true, but it just creates a cast of doubt or cloudiness over a political candidate or rival. So this could be one of those things where you try to create a smear campaign. The problem would be that this has been going on for so long that at some point it becomes Teflon, and people be like, it's just another one. Oh, it's just another one. Quid pro quo, it's just another one. It's just another one. It's just another one. And I believe there is some tiredness of it. And I think that if the GOP itself were to become carnivorous and attempt to create a smear campaign and make a divide between President Trump and Governor DeSantis, who's obviously did a great job in Florida during the election as well as during the hurricane, and he has made some strong stances against some of the authoritarian rules, regulations that were promulgated during the quote unquote pandemic in Florida, Texas. Governor Kristi Noem in South Dakota, and a few others had took the stance that they were not going to follow suit, and they were going to keep open states, and they were going to do the best to monitor the situation while at the same time making sure people were safe and their states would continue to be productive and produce their state GDP, having people in school, keeping their workforce and their livelihoods going. And because of that, you can see that they were very successful in their new election results that just happened on November 8th. That being said, if we take the stance that the Democratic Party has been doing the smear campaign, whether it's Russian collusion or the Steele documents or fake quid pro quo or impeaching them twice, and they have the donors, what is the difference if the GOP attempts to do that now? You may have the donors and you may have the media, but it's not based, in my opinion, on the person. I think therein lies the dilemma that there is the belief in elite circles. I can't speak for anyone, but they apparently believe that if you either isolate the problem or, as they say, cut off the head, the body flows. But in some cases, you think of the attacks that are on Carrie Lake, Lauren Boebert, MTG, Getz, Ron Johnson. So all the people that align themselves in this umbrella of we the people, America first, as an ideology and a concept, which is nothing new. We know that President Clinton used MAGA plenty of times during his campaign and during his years as president of the United States. It's just interesting that because you use it now, then it's become some bad thing. But I think for the average American, I've been to another country, and people do take pride as being citizens of the country. The average American does take pride in being American. And now there's this cultural divide where there are people within the country that seem to think that America is this bad place. But when you leave America and these same people go to other countries, it's very interesting, the reaction, because they realize that no, America's not. You get to say that what you want here. You have that freedom of speech. You know, it's very shameful, actually. You don't see, I have not seen, maybe it is out there, but on the level that it's been in the last few years, people burning their own country's flags, or, you know, defaming your national anthem. Just a lot of things that you go, you know, you're an American citizen and we take for granted, you know, how good this country is in comparison to other countries. Think about the border situation right now. So you have people from Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, Salvador. There's some Colombians, Hondurans, that are all seeking shelter here in the United States. But the people that are here in the United States seem to think that this is the worst place. I would think that if you ask all the people in Honduras and you take a state from the United States and say, hey, you guys want to switch? I don't think that the Americans would want to live like the Hondurans. I'm pretty sure about that. And I know the Hondurans would switch in a minute. So I don't think there would be much of a primary anyway, because if, in reality, some people's political fortune is tied to President Trump and the campaigning and the fundraising that he has done for them within the last few years, including Governor-elect DeSantis. Don't think for 1 second that that isn't Trump's base voting for him in Florida. That is a combined effort there. Don't think for 1 second that it was not President Trump campaigning for Mitch McConnell, Minority Speaker McCarthy, and some of the other ones as well. So where this is coming from, one that really is kind of shocking to many people is the new Lieutenant Governor Sears. She actually was a part of our organization that supported Trump, and to see her now coming out and saying that she would not vote for him, that the party needs to go in a different direction, I can say that, this is my humble opinion, that minorities, particularly black minorities, you just got your seat. And this hasn't even been a year. And now the person that helped you get your seat, you're saying that you don't want to vote for him. And then you say the voters have spoke. I'm interested in my personal opinion, which voters were those? Because I don't recall any voters saying that President Trump was a problem. This is now something that is being primed and framed in the media and taken to social media. But that was not something that was heavily spoken about during this past year or the year before and so forth. I can only say what I've read and what I've heard. So there will be some, and I will tell you kind of how minority communities think. It's like, wait a minute, you're tripping. And I'm saying the way they would say, yo, that was your, I don't know, that's shady. And so, in my opinion, I don't know, but I would think that she lost some of her credit. Definitely lost some of her credit in the black community, because you turned on the person that helped you. That's my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong, but I think I have a good feel of being black. A good feel of that. I think that you lose a lot of your cred, and probably should walk that back a little bit. Definitely walk that back. Walk that back. You should definitely Michael Jackson that thing back. Michael Jackson that thing. Moonwalk that thing back. Be like, if he was nominated, then I would definitely have to support him, as he would be the leader of the party. Would I be interested in someone else being the leader if the party went that direction? I would be interested in that. But she should walk that back. Not only should she walk that back, but I think Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy should walk the back, and whoever it is at the center. Now, we know that there's an opposite parties out there, and I'm only speaking from political strategy. They should walk that back. They should walk that back. You should not alienate your base, especially considering that there is a Senate race that is still going on. There are governor races. There are congressional races. And so it seems that those, as they would say, the establishment, is willing to lose all of those if they could just rid themselves of Trump. But at the same time, they definitely know they need his base. So you need the voters that espouse that same ideal. However, those voters look at you like, kind of shady. Kind of shady. Kind of shady. And that is the real problem they're faced. You can have the donuts, you can have the social media. But if you don't have the votes, and you don't have the voters, and you don't have that base, then are you really trying to win, or are you trying to keep the status quo? And people will look at that Kind of shady. Kind of shady. Just my opinion. I don't know. It's just me. I'm just one vote, and I'm just voicing an opinion. But I think that if you went out and spoke to a lot of people, some people would look at that as being shady. All right. So I thought that was a classic Machiavellian move. That if you believe the establishment exists, which I said there, you alienate your base, similar to what happened after the election in 2020 and the runoff in Georgia. Here we are again, and you lose them, and you say, okay, well, we'll get them in 24. Well, that seems like a power stay for the status quo. And Republican voters, which is something that I will say, in my opinion, now in the age of the electorate and the way the electorate has changed in the past few years, voters are more keen to be aware and to listen and to be actively involved, and to be more informed, simply because, well, the reality is that they've been lied to by their own party, by the other party, and by the media. And people have gotten tired of that. And that's the truth of it. I mean, you can't really cut it any other way. So that's the truth of it. People have gotten tired of it. So I think that because people have gotten tired of it, they are more likely to, you know, you know, so like, so I just think that the Republican voters in particular are less likely to just go with the program. Whereas I think the Democratic voters in particular, something great, and this is what I will show. This is going to make my point really great. So there was the student loan forgiveness, right? The executive order and so forth and so on. If I can actually get to it, I'll put my page up here. I'm not really sure if I have it, but I do recall reading about it, and I thought that was an interesting thing because this is just a couple days, as you can see my Facebook page, this is a couple days after the election, and what happens right here in Texas, the Supreme Court rules that the student loan forgiveness program is unconstitutional. Right there, Biden's student loan handout struck down by federal judge in Texas. And I spoke about this. So there were already the issue that, I'm going to just take that out. The issue, I don't know why this is up there. So there was already the issue outside of the student loan program that was struck down. But was this a give to increase your electoral vote? And there's a difference between collecting ballots and votes. The scheme behind that and everything. So after the election, it struck down again. And if you were one of those people that understood that there were states that said, if you accept this student loan relief, that you're also going to have to pay taxes on that. And as they say, I don't like to say the word, but it's all in the details. Sometimes, as the old people would say, that if it looks too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. And we're not even 30 days after, and it's unconstitutional. So you went to the polls based on, we're having that, but I guess the laugh's on you. And there are people that said the government knew that it was going to be struck down. It's just coincidental that the ruling comes after the election instead of before the election. But if you had been reading the tea leaves, you would have seen that there were constitutional cases, specifically Justice Barrett in the Supreme Court denied the case to be heard with no opinion, which was interesting. It was very interesting. No opinion. And now in Texas, unconstitutional. So, game on, right? All right. So, I'm going to just go back again and get my Twitter feed going again. There it is. There's my Twitter feed. And there's me again. And There's my Twitter feed again. Bingo. So, just going through a little stuff that I was talking about earlier, I don't really consider much back and forth as far as the statement that President Trump released today, going back and forth. I don't see any of the rivals creating the type of synergy that transforms the country. If they're thinking that his base is about him instead of the ideals, people need an establishment never gets it. It's not about Trump. It's about the ideals. And he just embodies the ideals and they think that he fights for them. So whether it's Trump or someone else, those ideals are still going to be there. And one of the greatest ideals, which is something that we should know because it helped the founding of this country, is freedom. Americans like freedom. It is the ideal that is really, really hard to kill. And I don't use the word kill as in body, but literally to fight against. When freedom is truly grasped by an individual, you have no idea the amount of turmoil, tribulation, trials, whatever they will go through to get freedom. Freedom is the ultimate equalizer. French Revolution, American Revolution, so forth and so on. So I think that if you're thinking along that line that, hey, we just get rid of him, then everybody will fall into the fold, I think that is a misguided strategy, completely misguided. And I think apparently that this preemptive strike, as I said here, is just filling the waters. And again, there are still some election problems out there. So by alienating a base, then they, do they vote for him or, it gets really tricky. So what happens to their election with Herschel Walker and Senator Warnock? You still have Carrie Lake out there. Boebert, I think she's winning now. I don't know. I don't put a lot. I do like Twitter, but sometimes you don't know. And then of course there's the House and the Senate. Who's going to control those? So I think it's a little bit of a power grab, but the voters will definitely be watching this. And I don't see any of the characters or the usual suspects involved being able to produce the energy and the coattails that President Trump has produced. And that's just watching it from afar. I am not in anybody's inner circle, but the reality is people are not going to get excited about Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan. They're not. Now, the people that support them in the media and the boosters and donors, they might, but still got to have people. You got to have boots on the ground. Got to have boots on the ground. Right there, I was talking about the situation with Lieutenant Governor Sears. Really surprised that came about, and I think a little overreaction. Might want to walk that one back. Definitely lost some cred in the community. I can tell you that. And the great thing that you will find in some communities when these posters, they're not going to tell them. They're not going to say, I look at her a little different. I can tell you this by growing up in a black community. We'll sit back and be like, we just watch, like, you saw that? Yeah, that's shady. And still communicate as if nothing happened, but in the back of their mind, like, we know what you're about. And I can say that when you think about some other leaders out there, they try to, and what the community will think is that you prop up in front of them and think that they're leaders. I can say this. We don't listen to Al Sharpton. We don't listen to Jesse Jackson. Nope. Tim Scott is a good man. Seems like a good man, but he does not evoke the energy to transform a community. They will not get behind him like that. They will vote for him, and you have to understand the dynamics of how African Americans vote, and that's different from how they feel about you. They voted for Obama doesn't necessarily mean they like Obama, and I think those are there's two different things there. And will vote for a black candidate simply, some to spite, and there's definitely racism in the black community, and some because they actually believe him, and some simply because it's a black person doing well, and that doesn't even necessarily mean they even like them. So the dynamics in the black community you need to understand, and the people that in the media and in positions have platforms that don't tell people this, like what's her name? One of the women that are on CNN. Nobody listens to her. Nobody listens to Sunny on The View. and I can't say nobody, but what I'm saying is in the general sense, they don't have any sway. Now, of course, they have a platform and they have backers and they're in a position of influence, but they're not really influencing anybody. And the reason that you know this is because when you think about CNN, Don Lemon, right? No disrespect to Don Lemon and CNN, obviously have done really great things, and I'm super excited that anybody to do great things. But the influence factor, no, not in the black community. I can tell you that right now. No, 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 no. I can tell you that right now. So anyway, so some of the things that I wrote there that another one is that people assume, and it's like, oh, what's going on with this? And I say, you need to stop assuming that the other person plays by the same unwritten rules, and you need to lose that mentality and expect that people won't. And you need to plan and act accordingly, because it's not a surprise when they do it. And that's why our framers stood up for what they believed in. And in so doing, America is born. People are always surprised, say, I can't believe, but they're not playing by the rules. You should learn to expect whoever the contrasting or opposition is not to play by the rules. Everyone's not going to be like you. Everybody's not going to have an ethnocentric worldview. Everybody's not going to have your morals and your values. Everybody's not going to have your same convictions. And if you take the approach that they're probably not, and if Murphy's Law is true, whatever can go wrong does go wrong, then expect it, and then you can act accordingly. And then if it doesn't, and it goes the right way, then you can say, great, I really, that's really good, that's really helpful. But you need to start taking the approach that they're not going to play fair. They're not going to play fair. So it's simple. I thought that Governor-elect Kemp won his election, and I explained a little bit about how you vote and what goes on your paper. And so you can see the governor-elect, and you can see the lieutenant governor, you can see the senator, and that's all on one ballot. It was interesting, and many people have said this, that if you could count all the votes for Governor Kemp, how could you not count all the votes for Herschel Walker? It's on the same piece of paper. That's out there. Just telling you that's out there. And then the other thing is that there's the question of the 70 of 223 voting locations that were affected by problems, inconsistencies, and irregularities in Arizona. They happen to all be in Republican areas. Not one instance of any discrepancy, any issue of anything in the Democratic areas. And so you say, why is that? Is that an anomaly? Because if it's an anomaly, then it's going to be dispersed evenly throughout. But it's not dispersed evenly throughout, so it's centered only in one place. Why is that? When there are no irregularities in counting or issues in other areas, and that's consistent. So these are the things that cause American citizens to be like, come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. I don't know what's going on, but you have to be honest and ask the question. It's like if you bought a new car and you drove the car around the corner and it didn't work. You take the car back and he says, oh, but it's okay. And everybody else, 200 other people buy a car and they drive around the corner, but theirs does not work. But only yours works. You would say, well, there's got to be a problem with this one, even though they would tell you, no, there's not really a problem. This is normal. You can't tell people that something is normal when it's irregular. People don't think like that, because we have lives. We deal with stuff like this on a daily basis. Okay. And you also have to realize that there are other peoples that will do things because they believe that it's the right thing to do, which goes contrast to your morals because they have a different greater good. And the concept of being fair just doesn't exist for them. So you need to lose that mentality and understand what you're up against and just listen to people with other views, and you'll be able to decipher that. So I think my personal opinion is that the party should be thinking about the election on December 6th and making sure that it runs without incident, that there should be no delays in the counting or anything. And I'm just going to pop back up. That there should be no outstanding balance, which should be received late, because you know that it's happening. So if you know that it's happening, you should be able to prepare it, which is why people are having such a difficult time understanding that, elections only happen once every 2 years, once every 4 years. So you have 2 years to practice this. And that's your job. It's your one job as being on the election committee. It's your one job to get it right. And then when the election happens and you don't get it right, you say, well, what were you doing for 2 years? What were you doing for 4 years? Because this was your job. This is your job, you know? So yeah, that's out there in discussion and work and plus like that. So there was 17,000 votes that were need to be recounted that, said they were messed up, whatever the case would be. And you say, well, there's 17,000 names there. If you want to make sure that you get it right, then have those ballots, those people contacted so they can come in and make sure that they vote, and they vote according to the election that they so choose, instead of guessing, say, well, I can't really tell how this person voted. This is marked, but we're going to mark it that way. That leads to fraud, and that leads to problems with the election, because you're not truly getting the choice that they chose. So there's 17,000 names on those votes because each ballot is separate. Get in touch with them. People are saying that. Get in touch with them. All right. So that was the Maricopa stuff that was going on that we just touched on. Obviously, this is another article about inequality that's growing in the U.S. and around the world. And there are some issues down at the border with trade in New Mexico after Governor Abbott inspection order down there. And then former Governor Huckabee, and instant congratulations to Governor-elect Sarah Huckabee. Good job. Issues warning that the GOP could become extinct if it reverts back to its old methods and becomes the party of the globalists instead of the party of the working people. And that, I think, is an answer to what we saw while people circling the wagon saying, let's get rid of Trump. Trump, we can get rid of him now. We can blame the election on him. But he wasn't on any ballot. Not one. Not one. He wasn't on any ballot. And again, that's what we call priming and framing in the media, where you try to prime an argument and then you try and frame it in a certain light to get people to believe it. Because the opinion, that's why they call it the mass media. If you can get people to think the way that you want to think, then you can get them to act the way that you want to act. Unfortunately, people are individuals, and we've seen this. I can't say we, but I will say that people, and you hear it just walking around, you talk to people, they've seen this movie before. So it's not going to be very successful. Democrats lose the supermajority in Oregon State Senate. That's on kptv.com. So that's an interesting one right there. Oh, and this story right here I find really, really interesting. So there is a sheriff, and when you're voting, there are different proposals or different things that are on ballots or up for what we call discussion with wherever it is that you live or your community or town. But here in Oregon, in Lynn County, so the Lynn County Sheriff, Michelle Duncan, she released a statement regarding ballot measure 114 or 114. And she said that she saw the passage of the ballot measure, but she said that it says, which creates a required permitting system in order to purchase firearms and bans guns, magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. This is a terrible law for gun owners, crime victims, and public safeties. And so the sheriff says that this is her words, I want to send a clear message to Lynn County residents that the Lynn County Sheriff's Office is not going to be enforcing magazine capacity limits. So I think that's very interesting in light of the First and Second Amendment. Well, Second Amendments. So she said that it's poorly written and that Lynn County Sheriff's Office will do its best course of action to take on permitting. And I want to ensure anything we do or don't will not hinder gun owners' rights to purchase firearms intentionally and unintentionally. Of course, people understand that there is a battle over the right to bear firearms. Now, during the election, and I always remind people that people that are running for election will say different things depending on their audience. However, we live in the age of social media and the internet. And so you can always go back and say, no, but you said this. So that was a case a lot during the election of 2020. Go back, Google it, ask people about it, and now you see it again. So just recently, and I'll make an example of it, President Biden said, No more coal, no more coal, no more coal. And then the White House immediately says he didn't mean what he said, or it was loud and you heard it wrong. The election is over now, right? And what's happening in Pennsylvania? They've already begun the process. And so I always look at people and go, when people, if there's a saying, if you have a dispute with somebody and they smack you, and you have a dispute, and they smack you, and you have a dispute, and they smack you, and then they say, you know what, we need to have some counseling between the two of us so we can figure out, why it is that this keeps happening. And then the saying is that one person goes, well, I don't need to go to counseling. All you need to do is stop smacking me and we would be okay. And I say that to give you that example that sometimes you need to challenge and put it out there and stand up and say, no, what happens is you need to stop lying to me and then we won't be in this problem. But you keep lying to me and lying and lying. And here's the other half. If you keep believing the lies of people when they tell you something, but you know that they mean something else, or you don't believe that they mean what they say, then that's on you, one. But the only way to correct that issue is to confront that and say, no, wait, you said this, and that's what you're going to do. So I have to take you on face value. And so now the poor people of Pennsylvania realize that the administration meant what they said. They are serious about clean energy. They're very serious about stopping fracking, stopping oil, and not producing coal. So the people of Kentucky, the people of Pennsylvania, should not have been surprised by that because it's been consistent. It's been consistently said. And now here in Oregon, for the people that believe in the right to bear arms, there is obviously a fight. The federal government, doesn't want you to have it. And that's the short end version of it. They want to curtail gun rights and gun ownership. And to not believe that is delusional. So here's the sheriff in Oregon, and this is not something that's in a major part of the news, but this is the ballot measure 114. You can read about it and Google it and find out exactly what it says. Just like there were 5 states that voted on slavery. It's not in the news really. And these are the little things that they say, it's in the details. Oh, just pass the bill. Just pass the bill. I think that every single bill should be read. I think that every single bill should be articulated to the constituents of that specific representative so they can let them know how they choose to vote, or how they see that, and how it impacts their community. We should not be sending people to Washington or in state legislatures and have them just voting based on their own whims and desires. That's how we get to the problem right now, where you have an establishment, an elite group of people, and a fluke group of people, and though they won't say it, but there are people that believe that it's just another form of the aristocracy, where it's them up here, a class system, and you down here, and they get to tell you what is right and wrong. So I think that's just an embodiment of that attitude when you have that article where the people of Oregon want one thing, but the government seems to want something totally different. All right, so that's my spiel tonight. And I hope that I've said something that is inspiring and informative. We're waiting to see what happens with Carrie Lake, waiting to see what happens with Lauren Boebert. She's in the lead now. Carrie Lake appears to be going in the right direction, waiting for those drops. We don't understand how states that have 9 million people can count all of their ballots in one day, and then there are states that can't count. As the news conference came on today and said, well, this is Arizona, and this is normal for us, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in a position. I don't know all that goes into it. But come on, you had one job. That's what people are saying. That's the nutshell. You had one job, man. You had one job. All right. And so that's my spiel. I hope that I said something that's informative. So my page is CK Live. I'm going to see if I can get it up here. Sometimes I mess up, and I'm probably a little sleepy. I probably am. So sometimes I mess up. But if you get the opportunity to watch Facebook, you could say CK Live. 76244, and I'm actually doing it right here in front of you so you can see that I'm doing it. Keller, Texas, and we got scale the text and bring it all in there for you. And voila, we got it done. All right, so it's CQ Live 76244 Keller, Texas. You can see that, find that on Facebook, and that's generally where I go live at, and I might put it on YouTube, but of course it's YouTube then. So anyway, I hope that things go well for everyone. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm off, thank goodness. I'm gonna attempt to do some things around the house. We need to cut the lawn, and we'll see how things pan out in the coming days. So everybody stay safe. It's good to be here. Good to see you again, and that's all I got.